Hey there, hi there, ho there. I am Serena Hicks, and you are listening to the Serena Hicks Show, where we talk about love and money, all forms of love, self-love, neighborly love, love for your journey of entrepreneurship, love for the money you have, love for the debt you have, if you have any, love for your journey and experiences, learning how to make money, have money, steward money, donate money, receive money, love and money. That's it. We're going to talk about every intersection of and version of love and money. Welcome to the Love and Money Show. If you love it, tell a friend. I love you. I mean it. Let's go. Hey, you guys. I started this podcast slash YouTube show interview before having you, and I just had to interrupt us because my guest today, I'm not even done reading her book that we're going to talk about. It's called Thank You, More Please. My guest is Lily Womble, by the way, but I'm not even done with the book, and I couldn't even start the podcast before I went nuts telling Lily what a treasure her book is. So I'm going to let Lily introduce herself, and then we're going to dive the fuck in, because this is a Serena Hicks show and we talk about love, trust, and money. And this book is it's already changed my life and I'm not even done. Lily, will you say hi to my people, my friends, my community, and let them know a little bit about you, please?
Hi, Serena Hicks friends. I think that you're the best people already because Serena Hicks is such an incredible human. I am Lily Womble. I live in Brooklyn, New York with my husband, Chris. I am from the Deep South. That's why you'll hear a Southern twang. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. And I am a feminist dating coach. And when I started my career in the feminist nonprofit sector, I knew that the well-being of women and girls and people socialized as women was the heart of my life's purpose. And when I burnt the fuck out of the nonprofit world and needed a side hustle, I decided that I was going to get a job as a matchmaker, thinking how hilarious that a friend of mine was working at the firm, they were hiring, whatever. And I was like, it'll be hilarious how I, auditioned to be a matchmaker, got the job, quickly realized that dating is a microcosm of every hope, joy, dream, fear, insecurity, desire that we have as human beings, and that dating actually matters to our well-being. And I also saw that the dating world was a hotbed for patriarchal nonsense. And so I started working with my matchmaking clients, became the third most successful matchmaker out of 160 at that national firm. Hello, brag.
Nailed it.
And then I, started looking around my own life and realizing and you've read about this intimately, Serena, in the book, but my love life was a dumpster fire. I was settling constantly. I was in a relationship, a situationship with a man who didn't meet any of my needs. I was secretly crying in his bathroom and then taking a call from a matchmaking client saying, you should let's get you on better dates. So I was living out of alignment. And after realizing that with therapy and coming up with the courage to break it off with him, I looked around and was like, what am I going to do to never, ever settle again? Because conventional dating wisdom is not for me. Matchmaking is a first date solution. My therapist hasn't dated in 30 years, and my friends and family just tell me to swipe more and go on more dates. And are you sure you can trust yourself? Are you being too picky? So I then started building the solution that I needed for myself, getting beneath the surface of my checklist, what I thought would get me into the right relationship with somebody good on paper. I started understanding self-compassion more and really integrating it into how I treated myself in my love life and doing the things that I now get to teach in this book. And what happened was I felt free in my dating life. I felt joyful. I was leaving my number for cute strangers at a restaurant. I was flirting. I was saying kind of fuck it and let's go. And I was having more fun. And the bonus was that I ended up attracting my now husband, Chris, someone who was not on my original rigid checklist. And when I started coaching my matchmaking clients, this was about 7 years ago, with these same tools, they found better dates for themselves than I or anybody else could find for them. And so 6 years ago, I broke up with matchmaking. I started my company, Date Brazen, and I've since helped hundreds of badass feminists create dating lives that are joyful as fuck and that lead to the right partnership on their terms. And I've written this book, Thank You More Please, as a guidebook, a feminist guidebook for people to start taking up more space and attract the loves of their lives with a joyful as fuck dating life.
I live for this. Okay. I just live for all of this. I can feel somebody's plural, I feel you, in my audience who are like, I love that she's a feminist. What does that mean? Intersectional feminist. Just so we're crystal clear. That was something that I liked. And
Mhm.
actually, I think I underlined. It's the very beginning of the book. And I know the page numbers might change a little bit, but the way you explained, I loved. Okay. First of all, you quote Audre Lorde, and we're just in the introduction when you're like, hey, I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. I love that quote. I love, and part of what impacted me in reading the book, I hope that by the time people are listening to this, it's so hilarious to them that this was ever an issue. But in my head, talking about money endlessly, there's been the like, I'm not obsessed with money. It's not about money. It's about the love, the trust, permission to center self in story, all the similarities. But what was fascinating to me when I was reading how you were like, listen, I'm a feminist and I want to talk about the liberation of all people. And I want to talk about what that means to me. It's about intersections of everything. And I was like,
Yes.
oh yeah, I can put that in the introduction of my book. Like you model so clearly, there's no need to dance around any of it. It's just like, let me just make clear before you actually even read the book what I mean when I say feminist, and that you are truly standing for the liberation of everyone. And what I've gotten out of the book so far, and listeners, it's going to kill me to not have a 7-hour conversation. So, like, if I'm talking really fast, it's because I'm like, we just need to talk about everything we can in the next half hour. Um,
Oh my God, I love it.
it's centering. First of all, it's so abundant because the belief is not scarcity. The belief is not, there's only one or two people I could be happy with, so let me try desperately to find them. The belief is abundance. And it's so centered. I'm reading the book, I'm like, oh, right, it's about centering on my story. What are my deep desires? What works for me? Not what society told me, not what parents told me, not what well-meaning friends told me, not what TV told me, not what movies told me. It's so powerful and it's so anti-patriarchy in that it's about reclaiming power, reclaiming the loving, radical act of tuning into self and being like, what do I want? And not making anyone else responsible for making us quote happy, not making anyone else responsible for us feeling belonging, validation. I mean, it's a radical, loving responsibility reclaimed. It's so powerful.
Thank you. I receive all of that, and it is a delight to talk about it in this context with you. And just going back to the intersectional feminism of it all, Kimberly Crenshaw came up with uh, coined this phrase of intersectional feminism, and as a white woman myself with a ton of unearned privilege in this world, and as a white coach, I think it's my responsibility in this book to strive to include the struggles that people who hold marginalized identities face, because what are we doing if we're not including those most marginalized and centering them in a solution, right? So along the way, I mean, dating is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Dating is so hard. Go ahead, what were you gonna say?
No, I'm like, I mean, until it's not, which is a part of what's fun in your book.
Yes, yes. But I think part of the reason that most dating advice is rooted in patriarchal wisdom is this sort of blanket, rulesy, rigid approach that's like, this is a one size fits all, and you need to follow my rules, and you need to shrink, you need to want less because you are wanting too much and you are too much. And so I really hope that people feel that this book is the biggest permission slip that they could, like one of those checks that, McMahon is bringing to your door, of like the most giant permission to want what you want, to ask for it out loud and often, and to start owning the belief, at least baby step by baby step, that it might be possible. It is possible. It's inevitable that what you want exists. One of my favorite things that I get to coach my clients on is your desire for more gets to be evidence that it exists.
The other reason I'm obsessed with your book, just what you said, it's the same as we are learning, we create money in our lives.
Mm.
It's first, it's the audacity to believe it is possible. And then it is, and I love how you described often the baby steps forward before we have the so-called evidence. Like we have to believe it. Then after making the efforts, doing well, tripping, fumbling, fucking up, picking ourselves up and loving on ourselves, then we will see it. And everyone
Yeah.
still thinks it's like you see it and then you believe it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, first we believe it is possible
Yeah.
and we act accordingly, then we get to see it. That's one of my favorite things about this book was I was like, oh, it's absolutely a parallel
Yeah.
to not
100%.
settling, to not being like, I don't know, I should be happy with this,
Yeah.
living for it. What was your, also, I had so much fun. Um, the money business coach in me was living for finding out how you were like, whatever, I'll just maybe possibly be a matchmaker. Who cares? LOL. And then, we're number 3 in the company out of 160 people. I was like, ancestors and angels guide us at all times, even when we have no idea what's happening. They're like, do, do, do,
Mm,
do, do. We'll just route you here so that you could end
yeah.
up coaching as you do, writing as you do, speaking as you do. It's like, oh, isn't that adorable? You didn't know yet.
I know. I actually, when thinking about being in the dating industry, I honestly, like, I don't talk about this in the book, I'm only sharing it here, but I honestly thought, like, oh, that feels a little bit frothy and like surface level to do dating stuff at the time. This is now a decade
Mhm,
ago.
mhm.
And I didn't, I knew that my dating life sucked, but I was like, well, there's nothing I can really do about that. I'm just gonna get a job and pay my bills. I almost didn't take the matchmaking job because I had a job at Senor Frogs in Times
No.
Square making balloon hats. I almost, and I was making $300 cash a night. I was having panic attacks in the back because of the club-like atmosphere and yelling at people. I only work for tips, like literally not being paid a wage, but only being paid cash tips. I almost didn't take the job, Serena, because I was like, I don't know, I'm fine. But then I was divinely guided. I was divinely guided, and I found it an interesting problem to think about, and then figuring out, like, okay, what could be the solve for this problem, and discovering coaching, and then creating this beautiful process that I've gotten to create. It's such a gift.
It's so fun. It's a gift to the world. And I want everyone to know it's a reminder that like you're never lost, even when you feel lost. Like even at the beginning of the book, when you talk about I love that you call it a situationship. I'm like, I consider it a relationship slash situationship, but as you're explaining, you're like, waking up to this is a no for me. And as you even shared the story here, it was kind of like, it felt to me like sort of the like, that wasn't my best idea. And I'm like, no, it was perfect. It was perfect. It's because of that you truly woke up to
Right.
where you ultimately are now. And I
Mm,
suspect your ability to suss out and find and feel that's not a thing
mm-hmm,
was honed then because
mm-hmm.
you were like, this is acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm joined by millions of others, and I wonder how you feel about this, but I have so many tender feelings for that Lily. I mean, I wish that I write about the book how this guy and I, who were in a committed monogamous relationship for much time, and then we decide to go to France together, and we're sitting in Paris, and the first night we're in France, and it's my dream trip, like with my
Oh yeah.
who I thought was like my dream love. I just had sex for the first time. I was experiencing this life anew, and all of it was on a credit card. I was like joyfully spending that money, like it is all these things, right? And then he looks at me like really nervous and is like, Lily, I can't be in a monogamous relationship at all. It has to be open if we're going to be anything. And non-monogamy is totally fine if that's what one desires, but everything in my body was screaming, no, this is not what I want. This is not what I want. This is not what I want. But instead of, giving myself permission to want what I want, instead of trusting myself and listening to my body, I instead shoved my needs into a box, locked them away with it, lock and key, threw the key into the send. And now, as Lily, 10 years later, I desperately want to go and scoop her up and be like, let's go on a solo trip to Paris right now. I have all these like feelings, and I'm grateful to be right here, but when you say like it's good it happened because you're here, I both and have the
Mhm.
feelings of like, oh, longing for that version of me. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And I love that you said both and because I'm like, I just want to hug her because she's just in it. And this that chapter, not just the story, that chapter has a happy ending, but it's like, yeah,
Yes.
I think that's how you were from my point of view, it's like you were being prepared for your sacred work. Like you
Mm,
prepared, that was required to prepare you for this moment, this season, and the hundreds of thousands of women whose lives are about, or excuse, well, all women, because one of the things I like, it's like trans women, all women, hard stop, the end.
yeah.
Those who identify as women whose lives are about to be changed. And one of the
Yeah.
things that I underlined and put like 10 stars around. We know I love a book when I underline half of it, which is currently the pacing. Which if anyone's like, what's the point? I don't know. The point is I feel it and I have to underline it, and you can't be too discerning. You just can't. Women are made to feel like something must be wrong if a man hasn't chosen them. I cannot tell you, I don't want to tell you how many conversations, therapy appointments, and coaching times I have been like, oh shit, surprised to find that again. I fundamentally like my life. I fundamentally seek a life partner. I've put that on the back burner, which was also fun. I think it's around chapter 2 where it's like, and some of you guys are just like, I'll just deal with it never. I'm like, oh, that's where I went. That's where I've been. Um, it doesn't really work. And I see that with my clients too, where people are like, I want to make more money and feel good about money and my business. I'm just going to go on hold for 2 years because XYZ entirely normal life thing is happening. And I'm like, no, we don't want to
Yes.
push through that. But similar to my, anything can happen, but
Yeah.
chance at my exact age, having, and I quote, never been chosen, that, there might be something I could work on the inside further. But I just loved that sentence because I was like, that's it. Those are the words that I tell people. And it's such a like, I have such a tender place in my heart for it because it's like, yes, but every is unfair. But 98% of society's messages that I have been grown, like from bedtime stories
Yeah.
to still the movies I love, it's like so easy to feel not chosen and then for it to
Hmm.
be such a shameful secret that it's
Hmm.
overwhelming. And I feel
Hmm.
that in my heart. And it also again opened my eyes because I thought, oh, I have so many amazing clients who I think also feel like, oh, I haven't really figured out the money making in business yet.
Hmm.
And for
Hmm.
that reason, it's like their shameful secret and they've been doing the thing that I've been doing, being like, I mean, it's not that important. I have a full life otherwise. And it's like, yes.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
can
I
want.
think that as you and I know in our coaching and in our, I feel this in my own life, when I see myself totally disconnecting from the desire by sort of taking my hands off the wheel and
Mhm,
saying like, it's okay, it'll happen, like it,
mhm.
whatever I want, but I think
Later.
it's under functioning. Yeah. So it's a response to trauma and past experiences and makes total sense, like you're saying. Both and I wonder for you what a baby step might look like
Oh,
for anybody listening who feels aligned with this.
living for it. So per your book, one of the first things, and it was just fun for me to recognize because like when you say when I notice myself, pulling back and under functioning, I'm like, oh, I just never noticed. It ultimately has to be pointed out to me. And I see that with a lot of
Oh,
clients, like our reasons to sort of, let me say it like this, bad words coming up per usual. I find in my life, if I don't have what I want, first I try to force it. Then I'm like,
yeah.
fuck it, forget about it. And
Yeah.
it's like finding the middle space of
Yeah.
like, hi, of course I want what I want. And just as you said, in my mind, I'm always thinking like our desires are like God calling us saying, do you want to co-create? Because like I've never desired to be a bookkeeper or CPA. Like I'm so grateful for those I've worked with, but that is literally not a desire that sober Serena, drunk Serena, high Serena, no version of me has ever been like, do you know it'd be hot? I could be a CPA. Like no version of me has ever had that fantasy. So I'm like, yeah, that's not ever been a desire because that's literally not my work. All to say,
Yeah.
I think that first I don't recognize it. And then I think it's just this like, as you said, protection mechanism
Yeah.
to attempt to avoid disappointment, to be like, I'll just pretend I don't care. And so the first thing that was so
Mhm.
valuable to me and it landed in my nervous system, like it was a big moment, reading in bed, which I don't do a lot of, but I was like still enjoying the book, was when you were like, let's just do a dating detox just for about 30 days. And it was so fun to feel how it just locked in my system as like, yes, we are going to find our person and be committed to this. But
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
we're going to take the time out to do some housekeeping lovingly. Like
Right.
That was my baby step, but it doesn't feel like a baby step. It feels like a big step.
Yeah, because it's
You,
acknowledging first and foremost. It's acknowledging the desire instead of being like, it'll happen when it happens, with the energy of under functioning.
can you explain, are you willing to explain to our shared people in this moment, like, what is the value of a dating detox? Because I feel like some people are tracking with me immediately and other people are like, this sounds like a bad idea.
Okay, so I think of the dating detox as getting in. Okay, so I liken, and you have read this in the book, Serena, and everybody else will too if you order the book. I liken the dating space, even if you are under functioning, meaning taking your hands off the wheel, but still secretly worrying about it under the surface, like a lot of the time, or you're over functioning, meaning muscling, micromanaging, hustling, dating like it's your part-time job, blah, blah, blah. All of that shit is being in the dating casino. It's like the bing, 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 loud. The worries are loud. The stressors are loud. The highs are high and the lows are low. It's like, do you remember in the early days of business and when when I first started Date Brazen, the highs were never as high as the lows were low. The lows were so low that I was like, am I meant to do this? This is so hard.
Thank you for this memory. It's been a minute, but I can remember
I
getting
know.
results where they said no, and it was like, I don't know if it'll ever come together.
Yeah, and the highs didn't ever feel like they justified the lows. It was a mess. It felt like a mess to me. So, getting out of the dating casino means exiting the casino and you have a black, gorgeous, giant SUV waiting for you. There's a person with a sign with your name on it. You get in the SUV and you're being driven to the dating detox spa. Okay. So this is not a punishing retreat. This is a retreat where your needs are taken care of. You're really proactive about what do I want? What do I need? Let me journal more. Let me think more about my desires. Let me like get in tune more so that it's not in the dating casino in around all of that noise. The noise is flings that you're still talking to every once and again when you're lonely. The noise is actively swiping all the time. The noise is the dating chatter worry, the worry chatter. The noise is people on TikTok and Instagram who you followed 2 years ago who give dating advice that now feels cringy or limiting or rigid. So you've got to detox from all of that noise to allow your inner voice to start coming through more. And that inner voice is the desire, the like, maybe it is possible that I get to want what I want. Maybe it is possible that what I want exists. So there are three core categories of the dating detox. Number one is detox from active dating. So I recommend for 30 days, whether you're an overfunctioner or an underfunctioner, delete the dating apps from your phone, take an intentional pause, text any flings or any like potential people, hey, I'm taking a dating pause. Here's my number if you want to text me, or just don't say anything but obviously don't ghost, bless and release people if it feels like it's necessary. And then pause active dating. If something falls in your lap, great, but pause active dating and searching. This is also pausing the hypervigilance in the grocery store for any cute human who may not have a wedding ring on.
That part, you just articulated, I couldn't feel it, but that part. So reading Lily's book. Lily, how can they find your book before we even get to the end?
You can find it anywhere. Literally, you can buy it anywhere.
Okay, so I read your book, and this part, we're still in the dating detox part of the conversation.
Detox.
The like reducing of hypervigilance. So on
Yes.
Monday, I started reading your book on Sunday because that's how I roll. So Monday, I had dance class. My first East Coast swing, West Coast swing, who cares? It's a swing class, it's partner dance. And it was so much fun. And everybody, if you don't know this about me, I have a dance background, which means I'm the worst dance client because in the end, I fell in love with pole dance, which is a solo endeavor. And all these different things, and to be partnered in partner dance is the difference between a solo ice skater and partner ice skating. It's night and day, and my perfectionist crazy gets real loud real quick because I identify as a dancer. So when I'm not immediately phenomenal, I'm lots of voices in the head. Okay, so I'm in this partner dance class and I'm immediately like, this might be my worst idea ever. And then this smoking hot guy comes out of the bathroom and I'm like, even worse. And then I'm like, this is not a problem. This is not a problem. I'm totally in dating detox. And for me, I decided, even if someone's like, hey, I really like you, blah, 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 I'm just going to be like, cool, here's my number, call me after May 17th.
Yeah.
And
I love.
Thank you. It was interesting to notice. Like, of course I clocked him because he's smoking hot. And then it was like irrelevant. Like a voice in my head was like irrelevant.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get us like we are not in that game right now and not from like,
Yeah.
give up forever. Just literally like, whoops, we're taking a time out. And I had so much fun. The way the teachers teach the class is ultimately you keep switching partners like every other minute as we're teaching, learning all the different things. So I'm like, oh my God, I ended up dancing with, I think, 10 different guys from the age of 25 to I think 75. I didn't ask the oldest gentleman, but how old are you? But like it was so fun to see how energetically more open and present I was because I wasn't up to something. And by up to something, I mean getting smoking hot guys full attention and or hyper focused on him, hyper vigilant. It was just, I'm in dance class.
Yeah.
Hell, but
Yeah.
this guy, that guy, this guy.
Yes, I think that's the tricky thing about being in an under functioning mode of like, okay, it'll happen when it happens, because when you see any opportunity, it can be very distracting and very like your brain attaches all meaning to this like smoking hot man coming out of the bathroom because you're like, is this it? Is this the universe telling me? So you're giving yourself permission to like take a pause from expecting this miracle to happen um,
Mhm.
in a way that like, do you know what I'm saying?
It's not forcing. And I know exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
I thought this is going to end up showing up in my Boom Boom Room program because here's how it shows up for entrepreneurs beginning stage of their business. They're in their fuck it phase and or they go to a networking event or so many of my clients are coaches. In case y'all are confused, that I love that. I love that about my business, but also I have other entrepreneurs. So they'll be at an event and someone's like, oh my God, did you know that, Serena is a coach and this alternate version of Serena, who's not me, suddenly goes from like, fuck it, my business doesn't work. I don't know what's happening to like hyper focus. This is my next client. And just instead,
Right.
there's not an authentic connection because they're like, leaned in, energetically zoomed in, graspy, like, oh, this is it. It always happens when you're not forcing it. Yeah.
Or
And then they're forcing it, that hypervigilance. I see it all the time in my clients.
that's why the most terrible dating advice that I could ever have heard ever is it happens when you least expect it. Because
Agree.
how can one least expect it? Number one. And if you want something, it's just human to, even if you're like, I don't expect it, I don't expect it, I don't, that's muscling
Content.
energy because of course you want it. And when you're attached to this, like maybe it happens when I least expect it, then you're blaming yourself for desiring something,
That
which is
part.
an inherently patriarchal
Activity.
ideal. Yeah,
Yep. That's exactly right. Making
there we
ourselves
go.
wrong,
Yes.
shaming our desires, blaming ourselves for not having our desires filled yet.
Which brings me beautifully and naturally to the number two part of the detox, which is detoxing from dating worry. So, what's happening for most single people is that they're unaware of the low hum.
Mhm.
Maybe they're aware at 1 a.m. when they're like up panicking and Googling matchmakers in my area. No, no shade to matchmakers. Sometimes it can be a very fun thing. But that panic can be familiar. But if for most people, they're not aware of the low key hum all the time
Huh?
of the dating worry. It can sound like that little that's like on the back that, maybe your fridge is accidentally open, or maybe an electronic in your house is like buzzing. That's dating worry happening all the time. So detoxing from it means first getting aware. And this is very, standard coaching stuff that we all hopefully do, which is let's get aware of our thoughts and not be afraid of the dating worry, because acknowledging that, the fear is if I acknowledge it, it makes it more true. It'll last longer. If I acknowledge it, quite the opposite.
Yes.
So, detoxing from dating worry means acknowledging and practicing self-compassion daily for the dating worries that sound like, will I just die alone? Is it even possible for me? Am I too much? So in the book, I take people through step by step how to acknowledge, practice self-compassion, and do a baby step reframe of like, wow, I'm having a really hard thought. It might not be a fact. I mean, very simple but powerful stuff.
Mhm.
And then the third and final part of the dating detox, which I love, is detoxing from other people's dating advice.
Uh-huh. I just have to interrupt you just to say it's so glorious. Like I'm going to credit you forever and always, but I'm end up putting something in the boom boom room. It's same. How many people are like, well, my boyfriend, my husband, my mother, my sister, my neighbor gave me business advice. And I'm like, what did they do? And they're like, well, they've worked for the same company for 30 years. And I'm like, you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean they're not smart. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they're not brilliant. It doesn't mean they are best equipped to give you this advice.
Right. I think it's totally resonate with that. And I would say for love, if you're already predisposed to feeling behind, if you're already predisposed to thoughts like if you're dating men, a man hasn't chosen me, therefore I'm not, then you are so vulnerable to letting your sense of self be rocked and reconstructed by somebody else's bad dating advice. Just because someone is coupled does not mean they know more than you about your love story.
Which is so easy for people to forget, including myself, but also
Yeah.
all the people, because just what you said, like they could be so happily partnered, so happily married, and yet there could be some differences as far as values or what it means to be in partnership. So it's like, listen, it doesn't mean it's the same for all my listeners tracking in business. It doesn't mean, haha, they're not happily partnered. They very well may be. It doesn't mean they don't love you. Like clearly that's why they're sharing this. It also doesn't mean they are perfectly positioned to tell you, because as you say, and as I agree, it's like patriarchy tells us to outsource who knows better than us. And I think our shared mission is like, no. It's about learning to listen to source in self.
Yes.
We are responsible, not them.
Okay, I'm hearing the someones. I'm hearing the someones right now. And what they're saying is, but Lily, but Serena, I've never been in a relationship before. How could I trust that I know what I'm doing? I just got out of a terrible 10-year relationship. How could I possibly trust myself? And that is a really interesting thought, in that you're weaponizing your life experience and your complexity as a human being against yourself and your desires.
It's my current obsession. So I live for many things, but mostly trying to find connection with myself and source again and again. And Byron Katie teaches the work, and I do the work. I teach my clients the work. I'm obsessed with the work because that very same weaponization, it's like, as you know, as a coach, when we flip it, we can then see how perfectly positioned we are because of that. It's like, great.
Yeah.
But we have to do the work, and not necessarily
Yes.
Byron Katie the work. Like it doesn't fall out of the sky. It's not just like we make magic, not magic just bites us because it suddenly showed up. So I also love that you brought that up. Someone somewhere screaming about the trust. Literally, that's what we're talking about here. That is, I mean, what are we on the planet to do other than like have fun and connect? And that requires trust. Like there is nothing I value, and hi, this podcast is all about love, trust, and money. That literally, if we think of it as a triangle, I'm like, trust is required for love, trust is required for money. Like trust that we are worthy, trust that we are on our journey,
Yeah.
trust that we're capable of figuring out,
Yeah.
recovering, trying again.
And not that your listeners would not know how to build self-trust, because I know you talk about this all the time. And just to offer my 2 cents for my work is that I think that especially high achieving perfectionist feminists who I work with struggle with not having self-trust because they have this thought that like, some people just have it and some people don't. I haven't earned self-trust because I've been in a toxic relationship. Look, raising my hand over here as well, both and. Self-trust is a skill that is buildable. It is not a static state of being, and it's not like Serena and I have it and you can't have it too. And it's not like I trust myself perfectly all the time. By the way, I do not. And it is a thing that I'm still working on daily.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same.
So giving yourself permission to like, Brene Brown talks about trust being built in small marbles put into a jar and filling the jar with and I think self-trust is very similarly built, which is small decision by small decision. When you decide to really sit down and write out your dating worries and practice self-compassion, that can be a moment where you're building self-trust and intimacy with yourself. And the more small steps you take, it's cumulative. And so that is not only preparing you to be in the best relationship of your life with someone else, but we got with yourself. Hello.
Which is like the whole point, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it was a big pivotal
You're,
moment for
yeah.
me not long ago when I realized, like, at the end of the day, whoever I end up with will leave me. There's exactly one way. Either they will die or they will leave. One of the two. Or I will leave them because I'm dead. Like, sorry guys, I sprung the morbid on you. My point is, it's like the ego, the brain is constantly like, how do we find this? And it's like, no, no, no. I am the only thing I will have this whole life of mine. Like, other people who I love are either going to pass away and leave their mortal coil or go away for any number of reasons. It's not my job to try to predict.
Right.
It's always the self-trust. Like, that connection is like, what else do we have?
Yes. Well, and I'm just to give an example of how I'm still learning this. It's in the last chapter of the book, so I don't know that you've gotten there yet, but I
Go.
talk about my relationship with Chris, my husband, and we've been together about 7 years, 6 years, 6 years. I have no idea, but it's so fun. We're having the best time. I love him so much. We got married in May last year. It's almost been, so it'll be a year when this podcast comes out, May 4th. And before I got married, my parents divorced about 6, 7 years ago. And so I was an adult child of divorce. And it really rocked my world for a couple reasons. And I talk about how in my life I just picked up on all of this subliminal messaging and really explicit messaging that marriage is hard, partnership is hard, it's arduous, it's a battle, it's always going to be tough, right? All of this really difficult messaging around relationship and marriage. And my relationship with Chris has always felt pretty damn easeful. Yeah, we were human beings. We have moments. We do couples therapy. We love each other and we work on our relationship to ourselves and each other all the time. But I was freaking the fuck out before I got married about divorce. I was like, what does this mean? What if I change in 20 years? What if he changes in 20 years, which by the way is going to happen? And what if we grow apart? And what if we like I was freaking out about this decision, which felt soul level right to me now, but trusting like, is it going to be okay in 20 years? And my friend just heard my worries and fears. And she said, Lily, have you realized that your fear of divorce is also rooted in the patriarchy? That like, what if you could just trust that you would be okay no matter what? And that self-trust is guiding you in the right direction. And by the way, none of us can predict anything. A client of mine asked today, what's the point of doing this work if I choose somebody that then 20 years later I get a divorce from? And I was like, well, what's the point of me coaching you if tomorrow I walk into the street and get hit by a bus? We have to start practicing self-trust right now,
Yes.
because what else is there? This is what we have, and it produces magic in the short time that we have on this earth.
So much yes. We're going to wrap it up. I have 2 questions left for you because so much yes. And everybody go buy the book. It's that easy. Lily Womble with the W. Lily Womble. Thank you. More, please. Okay. Thank you for that. More, please. Here are my 2 questions for you. The first
Okay.
one is my absolute obsession, but I'm switching it to adjust to what we're talking about here, love. Were you raised to believe in the kind of love and marriage that you currently have?
No, 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 no way. I
No.
was raised to believe that I could stop being too much, and therefore you could attract a partner, a husband.
You won my heart as you detailed that because I was like, check, check, check. It reminded me one of my first.
Look,
I think I was 6 years old when my father and my big brother were explaining to me, don't make faces like that. Boys don't like girls who do that. And I was like being funny. And they were like, no, they like pretty girls. Stop doing that. And I'm like, yeah,
oh,
it's okay. So many things we talk about in therapy. But like literally it was
no,
like,
I was told before my
oh,
first date with my first boyfriend ever when I was 15, like, Lily, you should laugh a lot because boys like girls who are jovial.
I totally read that.
I mean, look, it's so real how little I was taught about how to be in a fruitful, dynamic, equal, equitable partnership. And it's something that I learn every single day. And thank God I did my own work to allow in someone as good as Chris into my life, because before I was so fearful, I was so afraid that I was too much, that I was going out into the world and attracting people who did believe that I was too much. And so really healing that belief piece by piece, imperfectly, allowed me to start co-creating the most beautiful love story I could have imagined for myself.
Mm. There's so much I just delight in that. And I think our stories are so parallel. So as a reminder for everyone listening, you living your truth is always also valuable. Just living your truth, because I'm like, oh right. I feel more than like inspired in the heady way, but I'm like, oh yeah. I'm fine. I will find my person. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
And it gives me, remember, I'm in my dating detox, but gives me permission to like, yes, we're gonna slow down to speed up, which is literally slowing down, which ironically, paradoxically speeds
Yes.
up the equation, not because we're hurrying, but because we like slow. So
Yes.
thank you. Here's the final question, because I'm obsessed with this question right now. Um, were you raised to believe, were you socialized to believe, not necessarily just your household, but like, were you raised believing I'm good with money?
Absolutely not. I was taken to Dave Ramsey classes at church at age 13.
But this is fascinating, because I'm asking everyone, and most people are like, they didn't talk to me about money like at all until it like
Oh no, they taught me
or
how
whatever.
bad debt is. They taught me how
Yes,
bad credit card debt is. And
yes.
they taught me, I remember a little church thing where you put $1 into the church and you put $1 into the shopping and you put $1 into the savings, like literal dollar bills. I
Yeah.
remember that little bank, piggy bank. But I was raised to, I mean, look, I love talking about money. My mom and dad had fundamentally different views and approaches. My mom was raised wealthy, my dad was raised poor. My mom was, if we can't afford it right now, then we're a failure. My dad was, we can't afford anything right now. So it's, I was raised with this very dichotomy, sort of like chasm. And I am grateful to them for loving me so hard and teaching me some things about money.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of the teaching of myself in my 20s and early 30s. Still doing it.
Totally normal. That is why it's my favorite question right now. It's so normal. And the more I'm asking people, and thank you for sharing so generously with everyone, is I think I've talked to about 30 people at this point, and one person was given sort of direct, and what we consider through the framework that I teach and everything, like, yes, that was supportive, but also it was taught to her so much that she like brought in perfectionism, as in like, be
It
very
has to be this
careful, be
way.
very, 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 very careful. Like, this is right, I
Yeah.
got it. And on one hand, she totally did, but she's like, but then it was suddenly almost too precious. Like, be very, 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 very careful. And it's like
Yeah.
money, like love, or like loving, healthy, long-term relationships, it's like so much of it is taught to us indirectly. And so many of
Mm.
us are so privileged to get to do the work right now, to say, oh my God, they loved me as best they could. They taught me as best they could. They taught me to the full extent of their capacity. And now I will honor them, and most importantly, me, by choosing
Yeah.
what really lights me up. Oh,
And this is so parallel again. The idea of I'll never figure money out. I'll never be good with money. I'll never have a lot of money. I'll never be abundant with money. Very, very similar to the neural pathway and thoughts of I'll never be in the right relationship. I'll never attract someone who is emotionally intelligent. There are no feminist, emotionally intelligent men out there if you're somebody who dates men. So just I want to witness that all of these things are figure outable and are why we have a job, and
yeah,
how lucky are we to have our jobs that
so
get to help
lucky.
people.
And also, as people are figuring it out, I just want to remind everyone listening, it's so not even like, it's so perfect, because you get what you want, what your heart desires, but it's also like, what's required to do it is fall in love with yourself on a more authentic level, on a deeper level, which only means you're also a more authentic and grounded, and like the kind of human who's contributing to the human collective. So it's like, be greedy about it, but also be very fucking clear. As we pursue these things that are on our heart, it's so valuable, literally, to the human collective. So,
Yep.
Lily, thank you for writing this book. Thank you. More, please. Lily Womble. Everybody, you know how the internet works. Go get it. Lily, will you tell everyone your website again so they can go directly to you, or what are you, Instagram, Facebook? I mean, I talked to you there, but what is your preferred way for people to connect with you?
Absolutely. You can go to datebrazen.com/book to see all of the retailers it's everywhere. And you can go to @datebrazen on Instagram or TikTok. And I also have a podcast, the Date Brazen podcast.
Thank you so much, Lily. Bye, you guys. Find us on the socials and tell us what you think about the book. Tell us if there was a part of this podcast that you were especially like, oh shit, that's me. Talk to us. All right. Love you, mean it. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you loved it, please share it with a friend, subscribe, leave a great review. If you didn't, okie dokes. I still love you. I still mean it. If you'd like to work together, you can find me at serenahicks.com. Also, any and all of my social profiles, click the link in profile and you'll find information about my 6-month group program. It is my signature 6-month program. It's $3,000 for 6 months of access. It's called the Boom Boom Room, specifically because we will take your current concepts about you and money and we will make them go boom. Also bloom, but it's fun to say boom and it's fun to say boom boom room. Love you, mean it. See you on the internet. Bye.